Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz, and I have a hilarious card surprise for you today. We are going to be using these new Nutcracker dies from Hero Arts. And y'all, I am not normally a Nutcracker fan. I think they're a little weird, but I am all on board when we talk about a hilarious sentiment. And the stamp set that coordinates with this collection is fantastic. So we're using two die sets. This is the Big Mouth Nutcracker die set, and you can make just a Nutcracker card. Then this is the Big Mouth slider die that coordinates with it that we're going to use to make the interactive piece that makes the mouth go up and down. And then here's the stamp set. It's called A Little Nuts. I also have the coordinating dies to go with this, and it's got Son of a Nutcracker. It's Christmas. Let's have a cracking Christmas. Things get a little nuts around here during the holidays, and then like the Christmas crackers and the Nutcracker and some nuts. It's hilarious. I cannot help myself. So I have an A2 piece of cardstock, and I'm taking this sort of U-shaped piece and I am just lining it up at the bottom of that piece of cardstock, and I'm cutting that out. And that is my mouth, or at least it can be. On this first version of the Nutcracker, I'm actually going to use that and put the teeth on that and let that be the mouth. The assembly for this guy is pretty simple. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to put this guy together, and it takes up the entire card. So I will say maybe the trickiest part of all of it is getting the teeth lined up. I'm going to go a little bit quickly through it on this first card because I learned a lot. And when I do the second one, hopefully I'm showing you things that make that a whole lot easier. I do appreciate though that they are individual teeth. I just think the finished product looks better when they're individual than if they had tried to just do deboss detail, because I don't want to add shading on there to try to bring out the indentations that a die like that would leave their teeth. They're supposed to be white, right? So I'm putting the hat on top. I have some gold accents here on both of these cards. And this is from the Treasured Cardstock collection. If you like specialty cardstocks, but you're looking for like value specialty cardstocks, definitely check those out. They're from Spellbinders, and they come with 15 sheets in a pack. And I think they're like 10 bucks ish. And sometimes you can get them on sale. And so it will have 5 different sheens of whatever color it is: gold, silver, rose gold, black, red. There's a handful of colors now. I think there's a teal one. And so you get 3 sheets each of the 5 different sheens. And I've used a lot of them, and I like that they're a nice heavy weight. They're white on the back instead of craft. It's great for something like this. When I go to add the hair on, I am just butting those right up against the hat, and the hat is all the way up against the top of that A2 panel. And then that way I know I've got sort of everything lined up the way that it's supposed to be. The jacket is all the way down at the bottom. Obviously, I didn't add glue in the middle because my mouth is missing and it needs to be able to slide through there. The eyes, there's like a circle and an oval. And so I cut the oval out of black. And then once I get these two glued together, I'm going to use my Sharpie acrylic paint pen in white, but you could just use a white gel pen. And I'm going to add a little bit of highlight on there. This is maybe the craziest thing you have to do in this card. Really, really simple stuff. To make the interactive mechanism work, I am flipping my card over and I'm piecing that rectangle back into my A2 panel. Then I have sort of the 2 pieces lined up when I go to add the teeth. It made the most sense to me to add the teeth onto the bottom first, and I didn't realize there are 2 different sizes. So each row of teeth has 4 of the narrower teeth, 2 on each side, and then 2 of the wider teeth right in the middle. I love how he sort of looks like a vampire right, right now, a little vampire Nutcracker. Oh my gosh, can you imagine dressing this guy up for Halloween? That would be absolutely hysterical. What I struggled with on this first card was getting the teeth lined up neatly against the edge of the cardstock. What I will do on the next one is just to put all the glue down and then all the teeth down, and I can sort of wiggle them all while they're still wet. If I go all the way to the edge of where the rectangle was cut out there, there is the tiniest little gap between your teeth or between the 2 middle teeth. So just keep that in mind if you really want them all butted right up against each other. I'm going to add his mustache on there so that it's covering the teeth a little bit. I think it gives me a little more room to play with for the eyes and the nose. There are some rosy cheeks, but I'm not always a rosy cheek person. It kind of depends. So I'm going to do one with them and one without them. This is the one without. I just popped up the nose on a little bit of 1mm foam tape from scrapbook.com. Just that tiny little bit of elevation, just enough to create a little shadow underneath it, I think really helps. When his eyes are closer together, I think he looks maybe creepier. When they're wider apart, he gets a little cuter. And then I'm just going to add his little eyebrows above that. So the eyebrows, the mustache, the beard, which is not actually attached yet, and then his hair are all out of a white shimmer cardstock, and then the teeth are just a flat white cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the teeth out of the bottom, and you can see where I have this gap where I can stamp something onto the background. So I'm grabbing my stamp set, a little nuts, which I'm probably going to say a whole bunch because I think it's so funny. This one's going to say son of a nutcracker. It's Christmas. What I didn't do was check my spacing. This just fits with the teeth sort of pulled all the way down. And so I encourage you when you're lining up your stamp to keep the teeth in there, and then you can pull them out before you stamp it if you want. But this is slightly lower than it needed to be, and you almost lose the bottom of the stamping. So keep that in mind. So that's an A2 panel, and here's the interactive mechanism from the die, right? There's just these two pieces and then that U-shaped piece that we used in the beginning. It comes together so simply. If you get intimidated by interactive cards, don't be. This one is really user-friendly. I am adding glue all over one side of that. I'm gluing this side first. So it's going onto the panel with the face. It doesn't actually matter which way you glue it. It is symmetrical. So not a big problem. And then I like it on here so that I can line up the teeth and get everything sort of situated before I add things onto my card. So I'm going to add my U into the middle. And at this point, I'm adding on an extra layer of cardstock. My peachy skin tone is like a 65-pound and it's interactive. So I just wanted a little extra sturdiness, but it's not altogether necessary. Then I'm going to hold that in there. And here is this other piece from the mechanism that you can see fits right inside of the other white piece that we have. And I'm gluing that to our peach piece, but only kind of where the teeth are. This isn't necessary. And the second one, you'll see, I really could have just glued the teeth straight onto that mechanism piece. I will say when you do it the way I'm doing it right now, the peach jaw, if you will, lines up a little bit better. Like it's more flush with the rest of the face, where when you do it the way we'll do it the second time, it is ever so slightly recessed. So here you can see I'm pulling my teeth down, and as soon as it hits the top of that jacket, you can just barely see the bottom of my sentiment, but you can see it, right? It wasn't enough that I was going to re-stamp it or anything. Could have just flipped it over, but I didn't feel like it. So I'm adding glue all around the outside edge on that white piece again, and you can see I have my sort of movement piece just held in there. There is no glue on that. And I was careful not to add too much glue, because if it oozes out and it gets onto the other mechanism piece, it's going to get glued in place, right? And then it's not going to move at all. I can see that my teeth piece on the very bottom of the card is hanging out a little bit. I'm just going to trim that off. And actually at the very, very end, I'm going to trim that off again. Okay. At this point, if you had assembled it this way, you wanted the teeth and jaw to be flush with the rest of the face, I would just trim off the bottom after you pulled the teeth all the way down. To attach the beard, I am adding just a tiny little diamond almost of foam tape. You can see down at the bottom by the jacket, there is a little triangle cutout. So I need to make sure that my foam tape is going to sort of fit down into there so that the teeth can move all the way down. I did it wrong the first time, which is why I was gluing a little bit of that cardstock back in place. If you include this longer piece for the jaw, it makes it pretty easy to hide a little gift card back in there. I think that's a lot of fun, and I think that's a little easier to do without it getting lost, because you can sort of tape it to the teeth. On this version, I'm going to assemble it the way Hero Arts teaches you to do it. I didn't have access to that video when I made the first card. I was kind of looking at this, trying to make sure I was doing it right the first time. But as long as it works, guys, there isn't a right and wrong. So like before, I am gluing this white piece to the back of our face. I find that this is a little bit easier when I go to put the whole card together. And I have already actually glued teeth to the longer jaw version. And I was like, well, let's try it the other way. I'm going to tape this into place, right? And then I'm going to drop it down ever so slightly because I don't want to accidentally glue this to the top teeth. Then when I have this little gap here, I can line up my teeth so that they're matching on the top and on the bottom. You can see I've added rosy cheeks on this one. I might still go back in and add like a little highlight on the rosy cheeks as well. I have put my teeth all the way to the outside edge of that sort of inner piece of cardstock. And then I'm butting them up against each other, and that will leave a tiny little gap in the middle. I think it's really funny to leave that gap, but maybe that's just me. And while the glue is wet, I just pull that out and then I push those up flush against my finger while it's pressing against the top of the cardstock. This was so much easier than sort of trying to maneuver the teeth one at a time like I did on the first card. So I am holding in that, I don't know what to call it. It's like a really short, fat T piece. I'm holding that into place. And I added glue only onto the white cardstock. And then I'll add my card base onto that, or at least a card panel. And then I'm going to stamp this after I've sort of assembled the whole thing. It's a little bit brave, but I felt confident that I could carefully peel this apart if I needed to. So you can see here when you use that short fat T, there's a little white piece right above the jacket that I don't love. I suppose I could have had the inside of the mouth here be the same color as the face, but I like that it's a different color. If you're going to assemble it this way, you have to use the beard to cover up that extra triangle of white space. This die cuts out a bunch of tiny triangles, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it was for when I was just looking at the dies. It's so you can stack these up, and instead of foam tape, you can use this down at the bottom right above the jacket, and that will attach your beard to your jaw. Okay. I don't know that that's altogether necessary, but I know in some places foam tape is a little less accessible, or at least that's what I've been told. So maybe that makes it easier for people if you don't have a lot of foam tape or you don't like to use foam tape. So I have the teeth pushed all the way down. I've got my stamp set again, and we're going to use things get a little nuts around here during the holidays, which is certainly true in my house. I'm using a navy pigment ink for both of these because I tend to get a really crisp image the first time. And especially on this one, if I mess it up, there's no fixing it short of pulling the card apart and trying not to rip things. I put a little glue on top of that triangle stack of cardstock, and I used my finger to just rub off any excess glue so it didn't ooze out and get stuck. And then you can see I'm just sort of sliding it up, moving things carefully at first, but I love these, right? So I actually love this so much without that extra piece of peach cardstock coming down that I carefully peeled off that beard again. I think I did it 3 times on this first card, and then cut through the 2 pieces of cardstock that I'd glued together. And now he will work the same way as the other one. You could cut off less of it and maybe put a different color strip and create a pull tab if you didn't want to add the beard down at the bottom. Using that U of cardstock covers up that white triangle that we needed to cover with the beard. But here are our 2 cards, my friends. Please let me know what you think of Nutcrackers. I mean, you made it this far, but still. And let me know what you think of this stamp set. I just was rolling laughing when I first saw it. Thank you all so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.